Hello, everybody. I'm Mel Doerr, the Aloha Shirt Psychic, coming to you from the suburbs of Chicago, electric Chicago. This is the day after the last night of the Democratic National Convention. It was held at United Center and I think McCormick Place. I didn't go into the city when the convention was going on because certain streets were closed. It would have been hard to get around. I wish I could have found out a way to get a ticket to get there. That would have been incredible. I cannot remember when Chicago has been this electric. Well, except when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. I'm an ice hockey fan. Boy, if I compare the Democratic National Convention to the Republican National Convention, there's no comparison. The Democratic National Convention was electric. It was filled with charisma and hope and bringing people together to work for a better America, to bring people together, Democrat, Republican, Independent, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their religion, sexual orientation, their race, their background, regardless of any of that. Some of the speakers were incredible. Hillary Clinton's speech was absolutely amazing. Tim Walz, incredible. Barack Obama, wow. But a real showstopper was Michelle Obama. She really, really, really was a shining light. There was so many moments of tears. Elizabeth Warren gave a great speech. When those mothers against gun violence stood up, or victims of gun violence stood up, I cried. It was just so absolutely incredible. But if you look at the Trump convention, it seems like it was almost more like disjointed, more like, when Trump speaks conspiracy theory stuff about how he's a victim. And Trump wants nothing more than to continue to create chaos, anarchy, doubt in our government, to cause us to be pulled apart, to pull families apart. In my own family, there's some issues going on because of politics. And that's exactly what Trump wants to continue. He will not succeed. He will not. I thought it was really moving when Tim Walz's son got tears in his eyes. And I think he said, "That's my dad." And did you hear Ann Coulter, who calls herself a conservative commentator? She called Tim Walz's son weird. But Tim Walz's son, I think, has ADHD. I don't know if he's on the spectrum or not, but I thought it was touching when his son said, "That's my dad," and got tears in his eyes. When Ann Coulter was called out on her remark against someone who has special needs, she then never apologized. Oh, no. She twisted it and misdirected, saying, "Well, the Dems call people weird." That is such a tactic for people like her and the whole Trump MAGA movement. Here again, deceive, divert, misdirect, redirect, lie. I loved it. I'll tell you a great speech I thought was Adam Kinzinger. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Kinzinger, however you say it. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name. But he was a Republican member of the House from Illinois. He didn't run again, but he spoke as a Republican at a Democratic National Convention. And man, his speech packed a punch. What Ann Coulter said about someone with maybe some special education issues and things like that. Conservatism, in my opinion, is not about making fun of people who have learning disabilities. I have a learning disability. I have something called dyscalculia. That means we can't add and subtract in our head. we have problems reading certain types of clocks. We have, issues with numbers. It doesn't make us any less intelligent. I have ADD/ADHD. I tend, if I get nervous, maybe to stutter a little. But that doesn't make me, as I said, any less intelligent. If conservatism is what the people like Ann Coulter make it, like making fun of other people, creating disharmony, discord, vilifying people because of where they're born or the color of their skin or their sexual orientation, which I believe happens at birth, or how they believe. That's not conservatism. That's racism, that's bigotry, that's authoritarianism. And it reeks of Nazism and it reeks of Putinism. That's not conservatism. Conservatism, as I remember it way back when, was all about individual rights, individual freedoms. What has happened to that Republican Party? They drank Trump's Kool-Aid, and which is worse is the ones that didn't drink the Kool-Aid pretended to go along with Trump because they were afraid to stand up to him. They lacked a certain part of the anatomy. And even though I am a Democrat, kudos to those Republicans who have stood up to Trump, who have said what he is doing is wrong. It is so wrong on so many levels and so divisive. Trump doesn't give one flying crap about any of you, his constituents, the people around him. All he cares about is holding on to power so he can grease his own pockets and about saving his ass from trouble. I'm really fired up. I'm a Democrat, as I said. Our democracy depends on all of us working together. And before the convention, I had written down some of my predictions about some of the things that Kamala would do when she's elected. Now, mind you, this is going to be a very tight race. So everybody must get out and vote. Everybody must have our voices heard. Get people to the polls. Encourage people to go to the polls. Drive them to the polls. Do what you have to do to make sure that we stop this tyranny, that we stop this divisiveness, that we stop this anarchy, and we stop this chaos that Donald Trump is cramming down our throats. And if he wins, our democracy is pretty much done. He claims he doesn't know anything about 2025. Well, in my opinion, he does. He hired people to write it. So here again, another Trump lie. He will do anything, cheat anybody so he can win. And my guides tell me he will be defeated. I'll say it again. He will be defeated. It's like my friend Beverly Kirby. She's a wonderful medium. She says, buckle up your seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride. Under Trump, under Trump, the Republican Party, as it once was, is no longer. But after Trump is gone, I see the Republican Party going back to what it once was. I see legislation passed in this country after Trump is gone to ensure our democracy, to ensure that we will never have a rogue president who will corrupt every department, every institution that this country has known. And that's what Trump and his cronies have done. And they did it because they knew they could get by with it. And we have a Supreme Court, not all of them, but some of them that was appointed by Trump that let him have a ticket to do anything he wanted. Well, that door swings both ways, because there can be another president coming to power that could use that same thing that SCOTUS just ruled on. And I want to tell you something, that ruling, that SCOTUS ruling, when, well, if it was presidential, he's immune. If it's personal, he wasn't. Wrong answer. I see under Kamala a new SCOTUS coming that will overturn that ridiculous decision that really made that portion of the Constitution saying what a president can be held responsible for. I see that what they did, they made that portion of the Constitution unconstitutional. How can you do that? I see those justices, 2 of them gone. I see impeachment for a few of those justices, and I see them removed. I see a new SCOTUS who will uphold presidents being criminally responsible if they willfully create a criminal act while they're president. Presidents should not be immune from prosecution. They should be held to the same standard that we all are. I see a new SCOTUS coming that will uphold women's rights and that will once again uphold Roe v. Wade. And I see Roe v. Wade being codified so that no longer can anybody mess with it. I see a new SCOTUS coming that will allow gay people, LGBTQ+, the whole alphabet, to be able to choose their partner and to be able to love whomever they choose to love without a government dictating to us that we can't love the person that we choose to love. I see a new SCOTUS coming that will enact human rights and reaffirm affirmative action. I see a new SCOTUS coming that's going to base their decisions on the arguments they hear, as opposed to pandering and doing favors for somebody who is under the table, paid them off. I see a new SCOTUS coming who, regardless of their political differences, will make decisions based on the Constitution and the law, not the actions of some criminal thug. I see legislation coming to prevent the likes of MTG and Matt Gaetz and Mike Johnson and people like that from shanghaiing our democracy and holding it hostage. I see an end to the filibuster as it exists now. I see an end to the gerrymandering the way it is now. Under Kamala, I see that the working class will no longer have to carry the cross of everybody else, that tax reductions will happen for the working class to take some of that load that they're bearing off of the classes, off of the backs of the middle class. I see a structure coming that's fair. So regardless whether you're wealthy, middle class, poor, the taxation structure will be based on income. Not if you're wealthy, you don't have to pay taxes. I'm all about entrepreneurship. I'm all about wealth. But I see a time coming when those on that tiny, tiny upper end of our society will pay their fair share, as they should. I see a time coming when politicians, including Supreme Court justices, will no longer be able to take bribes from corporations because those corporations want laws passed to benefit the corporations. I see legislation coming that will hold Supreme Court justices responsible under the law if they take what amounts to a bribe, if they take what amounts to some big gift from a corporate donor to have legislation pushed through. I see an end to that. I see a time coming under Kamala when workers will have more rights, when workers will work and get a fair wage. I see manufacturing coming back to this country. And I see a time coming when corporations, as long as they supply jobs and do everything under the law, then they'll get some tax cuts, not just because they're corporations and just because they made donations to Donald Trump. I see Donald Trump held responsible. He will have his sentencing. He will appeal it. But I see him, he's been convicted. I see him having to pay the piper for his crimes. I see Eileen DeCannon gone and an end to these judges just because they're put on by Donald Trump or certain political party, that they must follow the letter of the law. And enough of this behind the scenes finagling to try to free people who have engaged in criminal behavior. I see the 11th Circuit Court overturning Eileen's canon to dismiss the Trump case. And I see a new judge. I see her off the bench. Today, I understand that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. suspended his presidential bid and endorsed Donald Trump. Whoa, that is frightening. My guides tell me that might give Trump some votes, but at the end of the day, I intuit it will help Kamala. I intuit that ranking members of the Kennedy family, some have already come forward, but many will come forward and be very vocal against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s father, or was his grandfather, Bobby Kennedy, was polar opposite from Donald Trump. And I'm sure that his spirit is very, very, very angry with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for the shenanigans that he pulled today. As far as I'm concerned, RFK Jr. is as much of a sociopath as Donald Trump. He doesn't care about his constituents. He just wanted to be in the spotlight and to get even. But RFK's family, RFK Jr.'s family, is going to come out and speak out against him and will be very, very vocal and public in endorsing and campaigning for Kamala Harris. I am so glad that at the convention, her nieces came forward and gave everybody a lesson on how to pronounce Kamala's name. I hope you listen to it, Donald, because those little girls had 1,000,000 times more maturity than you'll ever hope to have, Donald Trump. They had more class right here in the tiny corner of their fingernail than you could ever hope for, Donald. Donald Trump is not a helper to America. He is a disgrace. I intuit, my guide showed me, that Trump will use Kennedy as long as Kennedy is beneficial to Trump. And then Trump will drop Kennedy like a hot potato. You mark my words. Kennedy, it was no coincidence that Kennedy suspended his campaign the day after the Democratic National Convention. He did so because he and Trump worked together on this, thinking that it would slow down the momentum of Kamala. It might have just for an iota, and they might have gotten some press on it. But guess what? My guides tell me Kamala's momentum is going to continue to accelerate. And no matter what Trump tries, or no matter what they try to pull out of their hat, it will not make her look bad. It's going to end up helping her in the long run. The momentum that little bit of a momentum they might have taken away from her today, guess what? She'll regain that momentum in quantum leaps. It won't have that much of an effect. Now, I'm not much into the polls, but some polls said it gives Trump's the lead, others says it didn't. But I believe in the polls that said it didn't really have that much of an effect, a little bit. But she is going to continue to surge ahead. I love what Sean Fain said. He's the president of the United Auto Workers. I think it was the first or second night of the Democratic National Convention. He had a shirt on. When he opened it, it said, "Trump is a scab." For those of you who don't know what a scab is, it's somebody who crosses a picket line when there's a union member who crosses a picket line when there is a strike going on. Joe Biden was out there with the workers when they were having a strike, not doing everything in his power to try to screw over the workers like Trump has done. Thank you, Sean, for wearing that shirt. Kamala Harris is going to have almost every powerful union in this country behind her. And I see a time in America when unions will step up and protect their employees, and an end to retaliation against employees who speak up about injustice, racism, and bigotry. Sean said, "We are fed up and fired up." Yay. And for anybody who wants to know what karma is all about, remember when she was running and Trump had people chanting, "Lock her up, lock her up"? Well, at the Democratic National Convention, they were chanting, "Lock him up, lock him up." A lot of you are probably wondering, what is Donald Trump up to? How did he feel about the Democratic National Convention? Well, as seen today, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said he suspended his campaign, didn't say he was stopping it, he just suspended it, whatever that's supposed to mean. It was Donald Trump's way of trying to take some of the spotlight off Kamala. I think it makes RFK look like a complete turncoat and a complete traitor. And if RFK would turn his back on his own family, on John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the president of the United States who was assassinated, turn his back on Bobby Kennedy, who was assassinated. He's a traitor to his family. What do you think he would do to this country? He's a traitor to this country. He engages in conspiracy theories. He engages in this anti-vaxxing BS. And that is going to bite him. After this, and when Trump dumps him, his career is shot. And just for the record, in the distant future, I see another Kennedy as president who'll be progressive and who will work for the American people. Pause. I'm on a roll. I was so proud to be a Chicagoan. And we got through a Democratic National Convention with just a few small hiccups, But to hear a certain so-called news agency tell it, and to hear Donald Trump tell it, Chicago is a city of violence and hatred and all this, guess what? like most Americans, we are a city that when things go wrong, we work together. That when we have something as important as the Democratic National Convention, we work together. And nothing, not Donald Trump or Robert F. Kennedy or his cronies or the Ann Coulters or anybody can cause us not to work together, because we're proud to be Chicagoans and we're proud to be Americans. The city was electric. Don't believe what you hear on the news about violence in Chicago. We do have gun violence, but let us use that to get gun control laws put into place. Nobody wants to take away anybody's guns. That's bullshit. Nobody wants to take away anybody's guns. But do we really need AK-47s to go hunting? No, we do not. Those weapons were designed for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to kill people as a military weapon. We shouldn't be able to own AK-47s for the same reason that we can't own a tank or a rocket launcher or a hand grenade. That's not taking away people's right to own guns. I intuit, I see, I predict that Tim Walz will be able to get the rural American vote. They will bring about education reform that this country has not seen in a very long time, and make sure that everybody will have an equal opportunity for education, and make sure that everybody will be able to afford an affordable college education and not have to spend the rest of their life paying back high interest rate student loans because banks have decided to price gouge. I see an end coming to this high credit card interest, sometimes 30%. That's a juice loan. In Chicago, we call it a juice loan. When you would take a loan from certain unsavory organizations, they would charge you so much interest, you could never pay it back. I see a ceiling put on how much credit card companies are going to be able to charge for interest. I see a ceiling put on how much banks are going to be able to charge for interest on mortgage rates. I see a time when groceries will be affordable, and an end to the price gouging by grocery suppliers. The farmers aren't seeing any of that money. It's going right into the grocery suppliers' pockets. I see legislation coming to stop the price gouging. I see legislation coming to help us get through this climate change crisis. I am concerned about our democracy, but I'm more concerned about the impact that climate change will have on our future generations, not only here in America, but throughout the world, and the impact it'll have on the wildlife. Because if we start letting wildlife die off, it impacts things further up the food chain. I see an interest coming back into saving the planet and nurturing our Earth Mother. Kamala's going to have a big job ahead of her, but she will not run away from the likes of Trump. Trump acts like that he's really brave and strong. He's a bully, and like most bullies, underneath all of that, it shows that he is a coward. Kamala Harris will not tuck her tail between her legs. She will stand up and fight, and so will Tim Walz. They will not take a backseat to the likes of Donald Trump, who would like to become a banana dictator in this country. She will not kowtow to Putin. She will not applaud authoritarian dictators like Putin or North Korea. Couldn't think of his name. She will honor our service people. When I saw Tammy Duckworth walk to that podium with her prosthesis, I thought, wow, she was an inspiration to all of our service people. And it's just sad that under the likes of Trump, when they came home, they got this from Donald Trump. I see a time coming when our service people, when they're out of the service, if they have an injury or post-traumatic stress related to the service, we won't turn our backs on them. We will help them, supply them with service dogs, supply them with the things they need. They fought for this country. My father fought in World War II to end tyranny. All the uncles on my mother's side and my uncle on my dad's side fought against Hitler, fought against Mussolini, fought against authoritarianism. And I'm sure they're turning over in their graves when they see what this country has come to with the likes of Donald Trump. But Donald, you will not destroy us. You will not cause us to be any more divisive. You will not succeed in creating any more chaos or anarchy or kissing the rear ends of banana republic dictators or the likes of Putin or Kim Jong-un. We will not allow this to happen any longer in America. Your time is coming, Donald Trump. Your number will be up. You're going to be held accountable for the things you've done. And I pray to God that you have the chutzpah. That's a Jewish word. It means the guts to face the problems that you have created for this country. But of course, Donald, you don't care because you're too busy running around being the victim and the martyr. I see a time coming when we can all reach across the aisle and work together. This country is still going to have the problems with some of the racism and bigotry, but I see a time coming under Kamala in America when we will no longer give a wink and a nod under the table to people chanting death to Jews, to people chanting kill the fags. We will no longer give a wink and a nod to neo-Nazi movements who would like to bring back hatred and discrimination and bigotry. We will not have an American apartheid. It will not happen. Donald, you're on your way down. The only reason my guides tell me he wants to be president is to free himself from going to jail. Trump will have nothing but empty seats, broken promises, and ramblings of a power-hungry despot. Notice how he uses the same vitriol, the same narrative about people running against him, his slurred-filled delusions based on conspiracy theory. Well, guess what, Donald? Americans are tired of drinking your Kool-Aid. We won't drink it, Donald. We won't. I see Harris surging even more in the most recent polls, even higher. So JFK Jr., if you think that you're supporting Trump will cause Trump to win, you had better think again. I see people the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene under investigation and indicted for some of their roles. I see Jenny Thomas under investigation and indicted for her role in January the 6th. I see Clarence Thomas off the court. I see him under investigation and indicted and convicted. for the shenanigans he has pulled. I see another Alito under investigation for the shenanigans he's pulled and indicted. As I said earlier in this show, I see the Supreme Court justices, at least 2 or 3 of them, impeached and taken off the court. I hear still some House Republicans pushing the narrative that Joe Biden committed impeachable offenses. He did not. They had nothing. They're doing it to trying to discredit him and to try to discredit Kamala. They're doing it to try to gain favor for Trump. It isn't working. I see Mike Johnson out. I see Mitch McConnell out. I see, as I said earlier, women's rights, equal pay for women. As I said earlier, an end to price gouging. Guidelines and laws for SCOTUS, making sure that they stay on the up and up. Laws protecting workers, increased minimum wage. Now, some people might say, well, then that's going to make prices go up. Wrong. During COVID and after, some stores, some grocers, they made record profits. And good for them, but not on the backs of the working people. I see an end coming to our dependency on fossil fuels, and I see money being spent under Kamala's administration to research new energy methods that are environmentally friendly. And trust me on this one, my guides assure me that will bring more jobs into the workforce. I see the ceiling, more of a ceiling on prescription drug costs. I see an increase in Social Security. I see a time coming when people over 65 years old, if they're under a certain income level, will not have to pay income tax, and that their Medicare, that their Social Security payments will not be taxed. They won't have to file tax on that. I see immigration reform. The most conservative immigration reform bill that's ever been in this country, written by a conservative Republican, was killed by Donald Trump. Who is running the House? Is it Johnson or is it Trump? We all know it's Trump. And the reason Trump killed that bill, he didn't give one flying iota about what's going on at the border. And just for the record, my guides tell me that's way over-exaggerated, what's going on at the border. Trump didn't care about that. He killed the bill because he knew that if he didn't kill that bill, he would not have something to campaign against. In other words, the crisis at the border. Had that bill gone through, Trump couldn't say, well, we need immigration reform. Look what's going on at the border. But what's going to happen is the Democratic politicians are going to stand up and say, but Mr. Trump, it was the best bill that ever existed, and you killed it because you wanted to use the border to help you in your campaign. That tells you he didn't care about any crisis at the border. I see citizenship coming to those people of DACA who have been hung in limbo, for the people who have lived here who can't get green cards, the ones who have lived here, not broken any laws, who have paid taxes. I see a pathway for them to get their green card and to gain citizenship because they've already proven that they are useful citizens to this country. And for those of you saying when people cross the border that they take away jobs from us, that's the biggest bunch of BS that was ever invented, and everybody knows it. How many people have you seen lately that want to clean a toilet? Or that want to get out there and toil digging ditches or do landscaping? Those are honorable jobs, don't get me wrong. But many of our immigrants, some don't have status, they do jobs that you and I don't want to do. There's a movie, A Day Without Mexicans. I want everybody to see that. Well, I see rights coming, I see laws coming to protect their rights and to give them a pathway to citizenship, provided that they don't have any felony records. Trump wants to delay his sentencing until after the election. I do see a slight delay with it, but he is going to learn that he does not dictate to the courts what the courts do. The courts will do what they do and not let somebody like Donald Trump tell them how or when they can do their job. I see laws coming to make it a criminal activity to make threats to jurors, to a judge's family, to a judge, to a prosecuting attorney. There all are laws on the books for that, but I see more strict laws coming. If somebody does that directly or indirectly, that they are going to have to face strict and severe penalties under the law. And I see those laws being enforced. As far as the documents case is concerned, that has not gone away. I see a new judge, and I see Trump being held accountable for that. The Georgia case has not gone away. I see him convicted there. I might be wrong on a few things here, but I am fired up. When Biden stepped down, I was very worried. I had even said that if he steps down, that could easily hand the election to Trump. And that's what many of us were fearful of. I was wrong about that. I read on the energy of the time when I made my prediction that Biden wouldn't step down. 3 hours later, he announced that he was staying in the race. 3 days later, he stepped down. And to be honest with you, I got beat up on YouTube. I don't mind. Somebody called me a fake. That bothered me. But I didn't stop. I stood up, I pouted for a few days, I dusted myself off, and I went forward. That's the kind of leader that Kamala Harris is for this country. And the kind of leader she will be. She'll pick herself up, dust herself off, and move forward for the majority of us. What's best for us and what's best for the country. As I was saying, when Biden stepped down, yes, I was very sad about it. I didn't know at that juncture if, she could win. But then I started doing my homework. I started watching her. I didn't know much about Tim Walz, but then I started watching him. I was watching Pete Buttigieg. I was watching all of her VP possible candidates. And once I started watching her, I felt that energy shift, that energy stepping away from fear and going into a positive future for this country. And if we do our jobs, and if we stand up and we do what we need to do, my guides tell me she will win. But we cannot take it for granted. It's up to us to make sure that she wins. Right before the election, I see stimulus checks coming out. I see uh, I see the economy continuing to get better. I see inflation at all times low. And make no mistake, Joe Biden has done more than any president in this country since 1963. And I also predicted, though, before Joe stepped down, that there was some event coming that will pull the Democrats together, that would give us momentum in defeating the tyranny of Donald Trump. And here we are. I knew something would happen. Claircognizance means we know, we don't know how we know or what we know, we just know. I knew something would happen. And here we are. It's up to us to keep this momentum going. What I see coming in the near future is the Dems focusing and starting to talk about their achievements. And I've been saying a long time, the Dems need to take the offensive. They need to talk about the achievements that Joe Biden has made. They need to talk about the issues. They can call Trump out on his shenanigans, yes, and they will. And they'll do it dynamically and forcefully, but they will also dynamically and forcefully talk about the things they're going to do for this country. And by God, they will do them. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a Chicagoan. And I'm proud to have all of you supporting my channel. And I'm proud to be able to continue doing my work. I've signed up to volunteer for Kamala's campaign. I've signed up to do everything I can do. And you've heard me say this before, which I probably didn't follow through on, but I'm going to be doing a lot more YouTube shows between now and the election to ease everybody's minds, to hopefully get everybody out and vote, to do what we can do to defeat Donald Trump. You know, in a way, I was guilty of talking the talk and not walking the walk. When I had cancer last summer, I've said this often, I was paralyzed by fear. I didn't know what to do. Nobody knew it, but I was paralyzed by fear. And it came from Spirit. Don't let the fear stand in front of you and hold you back. Let it get behind you and push you forward. And for that moment, when Joe Biden stepped down, I became paralyzed with fear. I thought, now what? And for a nanosecond, I thought, wow, what if Trump wins this? Wow. And I overanalyzed that for about 2 or 3 days. And then I said to myself, wait a minute. I am guilty of what I'm telling people to step out of. I got paralyzed by the fear, but I'm not paralyzed now. Do I think, what if Trump wins? Yes. But that's what keeps me going, because if he wins, we're in a boatload of trouble. So I'm stepping out of that fear. I'm letting it get behind me and push me forward, and to do everything I can possibly do as a person to make sure that Kamala wins. Now you might say, what can I do? Make phone calls, take people to the polls, just talk to people about it. I love this movement, Republicans for Kamala. That is growing exponentially. I love it when I see signs in yards that said, I switched to Kamala. We can do this. Do you want an America where we have a dictator who's going to do away with civil service jobs, who's going to stack the courts with his people so that no matter what crimes he commits, he'll go scot-free? And if we speak up against him, then we're going to be convicted of crimes? Do you want America like that? Do you want an America where you don't have rights to your body? You don't have rights to love who you want to love? Do you want America where there's going to be somebody at the top who will take away our free elections, who will really destroy our democracy. I don't see an America that way. I see an America where we have a leader who will pull us together, get us to work together, and make this country the best for each and every one of us. Thank you so much for your support. I'm really passionate about this today. Thank you for your loving support. And I'll keep coming on doing my shows. And I couldn't have done any of this without all of you. So thank you. A brief infomercial. We had a couple cancellations for our seminar in Chicago at the end of September. If you'd like to sign up for that, call 847-590-5411 or email me www.meldoerr, meldoerr.com. I do have openings on my Peru trip. It was, they only had so many availabilities, but now they've got more space. If you're interested, let me know as soon as possible, because that one is selling out really fast. It's going to be an incredible trip. We're going to go to Lake Titicaca. We're going to go to Machu Picchu. That's in September of next year. I've got Iceland in October of next year to see the Northern Lights. That's going to be incredible. And I've got my cruise on the Italian and French Riviera in May of next year. So if you're interested in those things, you can also call my office 847-590-5411 or email me www.meldoerr.com. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll be coming across loud and clear. All right. Thank you. Aloha, namaste, and God bless.